All right, let's talk about Nevada. This is a state of incredible contrasts, right? You've got this huge, harsh desert that somehow, against all odds, gave birth to these massive fortunes, legendary boomtowns, and, of course, the entertainment capital of the entire world. It's a story all about taking big, audacious gambles, and we're going to dive right in. Back in the early 20th century, after Nevada's first big boom went bust, someone called it a beautiful desert of buried hopes. And that phrase, it just perfectly captures the state's whole deal. It's this place of immense opportunity, for sure, but also equally immense risk, where you could literally become a millionaire one day and be totally broke the next. So that's the big question, isn't it? How did the state, which seems so empty and extreme, manage to just reinvent itself over and over again? Well, it's a story that involves a whole lot of silver, a civil war, some seriously bold laws, and a series of high-stakes bets that paid off in the most spectacular ways. So here's how we're going to break it down. We'll look at its battle-born beginnings and its ancient past. Then we'll get into the great silver boom and what happened next, the bust, the divorce industry, and gambling. After that, we'll cover the huge role the federal government played, and finally, the gambles Nevada is facing today. First up, Nevada's state motto is Battle Born, and that's not just some cool-sounding slogan. See, unlike most states, Nevada was basically fast-tracked into the Union for a very specific, very urgent reason that was tied directly to the Civil War. When you boil it down, Nevada's statehood was a huge political power play. It's 1864, the Civil War is still raging, and President Lincoln desperately needs every single electoral vote he can get to win re-election. So, granting statehood to the Republican-leaning Nevada territory was a strategic gamble to lock in those votes and strengthen his party's hold in Congress. And if you want a sense of just how urgent this was, get this. They didn't have time to send the new state constitution by horse or train. No, they telegraphed the entire thing, all 16,000-plus words, to Washington, D.C. It was the longest and most expensive telegram in history, costing an absolute fortune back then. It just goes to show how critical those 3 electoral votes were to the Union. Okay, so before all the politics and the wars and the silver rushes, there was just the land. And to really get Nevada, you've got to go back way, way back to its deep, ancient, and often pretty unforgiving geological history. Believe it or not, for hundreds of millions of years, this place wasn't a desert at all. It was a shallow sea just teeming with life. Eventually, tons of volcanic activity and these massive geological shifts created the basin and range landscape we see today. That iconic pattern of sharp mountain ranges separated by these flat, dry valleys. And it was all that ancient geology that left behind the mineral wealth that would one day define the state. And the human history here is incredibly deep, too. Some of North America's oldest petroglyphs or rock art are found right in this region. For thousands of years, people like the Paiute and Shoshone thrived in this challenging environment. But then, in the mid-1800s, the land became U.S. territory. And, well, its destiny was about to be completely and totally rewritten. And that change? It came in the form of a single discovery that would send shockwaves around the world. This is the story of the first great Nevada boom, the hunt for silver. The speed of this transformation is just staggering. I mean, think about it. In just 5 short years, the discovery of this massive silver deposit called the Comstock Lode turned a remote piece of the Utah Territory into a formal U.S. territory and then, bam, into a full-fledged state. Silver didn't just build fortunes here, it literally built the state of Nevada. And this number really says it all, a 525% population jump in just 1 decade. That's the tidal wave of people, prospectors, miners, speculators, who just poured in from California and all over. They created legendary boom towns like Virginia City practically overnight, all of them chasing the dream of striking it rich. But you know how it goes. What goes boom eventually goes bust. By the early 1900s, the silver was running out, and the state's economy was flatlining. Nevada was facing a real crisis, which led to that whole desert of buried hopes thing we talked about. The state needed a new plan, a new bet, a new gamble. So Nevada's response was, well, it was both brilliant and incredibly audacious. In 1931, right in the depths of the Great Depression, the state did 2 radical things. First, it legalized wide-open casino gambling. Second, it slashed the residency requirement for getting a divorce to just 6 weeks. And just like that, Nevada had a brand new economic model, attracting people not for silver, but for quick divorces and games of chance. Now, at the same time, another even bigger force was starting to shape Nevada's future in the 20th century, and that was the United States federal government. It looked at Nevada's vast, empty spaces and saw something incredibly valuable. World War II brought a ton of federal money for military bases, but it was the Cold War that really truly transformed the state. All that remote desert was the absolute perfect place for top-secret projects, everything from testing nuclear weapons to developing spy planes like the U-2 at the now infamous Area 51. This created a much more stable, government-funded pillar for the economy right alongside the up-and-down casino industry. And the scale of this federal footprint is just mind-blowing. A staggering 87% of all land in Nevada is owned and managed by the federal government. That's more than any other state in the lower 48. And as you could imagine, this has shaped everything from its economy to its fiercely independent and often pretty anti-government political culture. All right, so that brings us to the modern era, where these same themes of boom, bust, and reinvention are still playing out, mostly centered around the explosive growth of that one particular desert oasis, Las Vegas. I mean, the growth was just insane. In 1930, Clark County, where Vegas is, was basically a small railway stop with less than 9,000 people. Today, it's a sprawling metropolis of over 2 million. This modern boom, all fueled by casinos and tourism, it dwarfed even the wildest dreams of those old Comstock silver barons. But of course, history tends to repeat itself. The 2008 financial crisis hit Nevada harder than almost anywhere else. The housing market completely imploded, and tourist money dried up. It was this really brutal reminder that an economy built on things like tourism and speculation is incredibly vulnerable to those bust cycles, just like the old mining economy was a century before. This whole crazy history has forged a really unique political identity. Nevada's culture is fiercely individualistic, born from that self-reliant spirit of the frontier. It creates this live and let live attitude. But it also leads to these constant political fights with its biggest landowner, the federal government, over stuff like land, water, and controversial projects like the Yucca Mountain nuclear waste site. Which brings us right back to where we started. Nevada's entire history is just a series of reinventions. When the silver ran out, it bet on divorce and gambling. When it needed more stability, it leveraged its empty land for federal projects. Today, as the state tries to diversify beyond just tourism, it's placing new bets on things like technology, renewable energy, and logistics. So the question remains, what's going to be the next big play that defines its future? If you want to keep exploring the unique histories of the United States, go ahead and check out the next explainer in our U.S. State Histories playlist. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, be sure to subscribe to Notebook Summaries for more. Thanks for joining us.